Hi everyone, thank you to be with us for this another big talk from the big whale, the media that want to bridge the gap between the crypto space and the traditional finance without, of course, losing the core philosophy of crypto. Today I have the pleasure to host Jan Gorzny, one of the co-founder of ZIRCUIT, which is another L2 in the Ethereum ecosystem. So first of all, thanks to be with us, Jan. How are you?
Good. I'm great. Hi. Happy to
Hi.
be here.
How things are going for you? Because the
Very
equity is very new. Can you just describe where you are right now, without a deep dive? Because I have a couple of time to do it. But where we are right now, where you are busy, where we
Yeah,
are.
sure. We're not just another layer two first. We are
We're gonna
doing
develop after, yeah.
cool stuff, but yeah. So Zircuit is a relatively new project in terms of the L2s. We came out of stealth in November last year, and we've been in testnet since that. So that's been about 6 months, 8 months, something like that. I haven't done the math in my head. And we're getting ready to go towards mainnet sometime this summer, hopefully, if everything goes well. So it's really exciting times. We're keeping busy. I've had a great time on testnet. Everything's been working, and we're just sort of crossing the T's and dotting the I's for the mainnet release, and we're hoping to do that very soon. So it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, very exciting time. So, just I like to start with this question, with very basic question, just to know more about you, of course. So, what's your background and what did you choose to launch Zircuit? You're not alone. You have another founder with you, a co-founder. So,
Yeah, I
just
got a couple
you.
co-founders. But let me answer the question about myself first, and then we can talk about the team if we want. I did a PhD from the University of Waterloo a couple of years back, and since sort of Ethereum got started with this thing called Plasma, I've been working as a researcher in the scaling solution space for Ethereum, as well as doing some security work. And over the last 5 years, I was looking at a bunch of topics, whether that was Plasma, whether that was sort of early rollups and things like this, and sort of got some ideas and some stuff. And myself and my co-founder, my technical co-founder Martin, we had received some grants from the Ethereum Foundation to do some work on various topics related to rollups over the sort of last couple of years, and we kept seeing cool ideas and cool things, and we thought, wow, this is like really cool. This tech's really interesting. What if someone did this? What if someone did this? Like what could we do to convince them? And we thought about it for a little bit longer and said, oh well, why are we trying to convince someone else to use this really cool idea, to try this, to do this thing, which is very interesting. And so we decided to do our own thing, and so we started building, and that gives us a nice playground to do sort of what we want in our own layer two. Now, that not in like a risky sense, like I'm not going to be just throwing features at the wall to see what sticks, but certainly, with the innovations like sequencer level security, that's a lot easier to do if you have your own roll up being deployed and operated. And you can do that in a way that's very safe, and you can try it, and you can sort of target different parts of the market or the ecosystem to see if that's an interesting feature. And we think it certainly is. And we think, a lot of what we're doing is very cool. And there's a whole bunch of other things that, aren't necessarily sort of well documented or got buzzwords, but, we have our own
Yes.
way of doing circuits and aggregation and things like this. And a whole bunch of stuff that came out of this research that it was just easier to say, well, let's try doing our own thing. We'd been in this space for 5 years. We've been researchers. We've been publishing papers. We've got some grants. Let's try taking this to the next level and actually building a product that can use all this cool stuff that we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, nice. Just you just talk about the buzzword.
Mhm.
Most of the time we hear that a rollup, ZK rollup, going to be a game changer for the entire industry.
Sure.
Just can you remind us why? Because most of the time, okay, yeah, we're going to buid this rollup, we're going to build this ZK. Okay, that's very cool stuff. Okay, but at the end of the road, okay, why it's difficult? First of all, to build some product like that, and why that could be a game changer.
Sure.
Described by so many people in the industry.
So I'll tackle the game changer first, and then the difficulty, because I think the game changing part adds a little bit of context. Because The goal for the zero knowledge rollups is to really have a sort of a blockchain and a blockchain sort of. That's sort of what the rollup is. That's not quite a precise definition, where you have minimal trust in that update to the blockchain. So you need to use this concept of zero knowledge proof to ensure anyone, literally anyone, that what you've done is correct, and no one can dispute that if everything is implemented correctly and there's no bugs, and the mathematical system is sound. And that's really nice, because what I didn't say there was you need to sort of stake funds, or you need to be economically secure. It's just math. It's just code. You sort of do the implementation correctly and it just works. As a result, you get some really nice features out of this. So like you have very good finality time relative to, say, optimistic rollups, which sort of need a long period of time to make sure that if someone's cheating, they can get caught. On a zero knowledge rollup, you don't have to worry about that. It's a little bit simpler. It just, if I post some data with a valid proof, that's it. It's correct, right? And that's really, really nice. That is challenging because getting that to work mathematically is, unsurprisingly, not an easy task, right? Just getting, a nice blockchain was probably very challenging, 5-10 years ago, maybe earlier than that. But now doing that in a zero knowledge proof system, where every time you do an update to a blockchain, you have a proof that says, actually, I didn't cheat. I couldn't have cheated. It's non-trivial to implement. And so thankfully, there's been a lot of people doing a lot of research on this. So it's become very practical in the last couple of years, which is also why we started to do it sort of recently, because it moved from this realm of, oh, it would be really nice if we could do that, to, oh, actually, we can do that. And there's still room to improve performance and cost and things like this, because those are also important. You don't want to just say I didn't cheat. You also want to do it faster than Ethereum, or cheaper than Ethereum, so that end users also benefit from this and actually want to come to your network without just saying, well, why shouldn't I just use it on Ethereum itself or another blockchain? And if you do it right, you do get those cost savings, you do get better performance, you do get nice finality times, but it's a very difficult mathematical task to do that. You have to have some expertise in taking your transition function for the blockchain, so the updates, and putting it into this sort of very niche framework in math that
exactly, yeah,
probably
it's a very new field.
Yeah. So there's a big challenge there on the technical side, and then there's of course the challenge of getting a blockchain just everywhere else, right? Just getting the rest of the infrastructure, or the branding, or all of the other work that needs to be done. But like there's a lot of stuff that needs to go right for this to actually happen. But it's been going right for us, and obviously a lot of other teams too. But it's finally time that zero knowledge rollups are getting close to that end goal. It's probably still a year, 2 years, 3 years maybe before they're super feature complete and everyone's really like stoked and they're everywhere and they work and no one sort of questions whether or not they're ready to go. But we're making really big strides, and we have these networks online, including ZIRCUIT and testnet, and that's really, really exciting.
Okay, so let's go to the point, straight to the point, to ZIRCUIT. Recently you surpassed more than 3 billion of total value locked. So first of all, congratulations for this. You are raising a lot. So how do you explain this trend? Because maybe it's largely due to the risk-taking narrative, of course, because we can lock our liquid risk-taking token to farm the airdrop or to participate for the growth of the airdrop. Maybe that's more correct to say that. Can you explain to us this strategy?
Sure.
Why did you allow that? And not like Arbitrum or like other layer 2. Why your strategy is? Why did you choose this strategy?
Yeah, so the risk-taking is there to attract users for sure, right? So that's the point. And what we want is to be able to bring users onto ZIRCUIT on mainnet as soon as possible when we go to mainnet, in order to sort of support our idea that actually we have a more secure chain than other zero knowledge rollups. So some of the things we do differently is sequencer level security, where we're going to have an AI looking at transactions to prevent malicious ones on the chain. And if we truly believe that is a very good, valuable thing to have, which we do. We want all the DeFi and all the NFTs and all the games and everything that is out there to be on our chain, because we have an extra value proposition that other chains don't have. So by bringing restaking into sort of the fold, we can say, look, if you come start looking at our chain, and when ideally we go to mainnet, everything transitions over, and we're still finalizing what that plan will look like and all of that. So that will come soon. You'll have users that are actually on a more secure ecosystem, and that means ZIRCUIT's doing something good for the ecosystem and not just getting users. Because if we, like I said, if we really believe that this tech can do some level of security that other zero knowledge rollups can't do, then the best thing we can do for the ecosystem is to put everyone onto our chain and say, look, we're going to have it be extra secure. We're going to do stuff that other people can't do. So come here, right? We're going to give you some incentives to come so that we can secure to the best of our ability as much of the ecosystem as possible.
But why the restaking? Because it's the trend, or why did you not choose like another type of token? Just staking, or why did you choose this specific trend?
I think I'd have to ask another co-founder for a specific answer, but restaking is very hot right now. So very practically speaking, there's interest, and if we want to gather the biggest amount of interest, let's do the thing that works the best to bootstrap the network's liquidity. And all of this restaking has the potential to do that, especially if we can find
a lot in this
and describe a good way to bridge it over when we go mainnet, and that is the goal. So. Yeah, it's sort of practical, and that's where people are interested. So why not? I mean, we've seen it sort of work reasonably well in other chains too. It solves this problem of needing to be able to bootstrap your network, and why not? It works.
That strategy, yeah. I see. We are able to farm in some point and to resave some point when we put our restacking token in ZIRCUIT. So I have to ask this question, of course: is a token is on the map or not?
I can't comment on anything like that. But for now, earn the points, and we'll see what comes from that.
Okay. But how are they calculate the point? It's because of the incentive, because of the money you raise. And by the way, how much did you raise? To launch ZIRCUIT or to develop ZIRCUIT?
Yeah, so I can't comment on the amount that we raised to launch, but we did do one round. And for the incentive computation, basically we're giving you points on top of everything that's earning in the restaking protocols you use. So I think you take a whole bunch of other protocols like Renzo and some other ones, and you take those restaking tokens and you put them into the ZIRCUIT restaking, and you're actually earning points for all of them simultaneously. I think there's occasionally multipliers and bonuses that have gone out. I could be wrong about that. But that's the sort of the end time the end deal where the longer you stake, the more points you get.
Yeah.
And the more you stake, it's sort of a function of time and value.
Clear logic. So just can you give us some clarity on the roadmap? So when the launch of the mainnet is scheduled, and what will be the strategy, to attract more projects, more user after maybe a launch of a token, maybe or the end of the farming point. So what will be the strategy for the following months and the following years?
Sure. So for the timeline, we are definitely aiming to go mainnet this summer. So, I'm hoping it's July. Everything is gearing up towards July, but we, like I said earlier, we'll do it correctly, right? That's more important than doing it quickly. So July seems pretty feasible, but if we discover a reason that we don't want to do that for some technical reason, then we'll hold off and make sure we do it correctly. But that is the plan, and we have a bunch of launch partners already ready to go live with us on day one. So once we make that transition to mainnet, we will have dApps of all of your favorite types already ready to use. So if you do have liquidity on the chain, you'll be able to put it to DeFi protocols, or do some other things, NFTs or games or whatever it is. Admittedly, I'm on the technical side. I'm working on the protocol side. I don't know who those dApps
Don't escape like that.
are. But there will be everything there. So it's going to be really exciting, and that will be sort of July, and we expect additional ecosystem partners to be obviously onboarded for the remainder of, like forever, right? We want to keep attracting more and more, but we'll probably see a lot of growth in July and August if everything goes pretty well. As for the strategies going forward to sort of retain and encourage these types of dApps and users, I can't comment too much on it right now, but there, some of the stuff that's definitely going to happen is we're still going to have, bounties of blockchains. We're still going to think about grants and putting those out there. We're still going to be talking to a lot of people. So what I can say is we've got some really cool stuff cooking, but not much else. So I know you've asked a couple of questions now that I've tried to dodge, but I just don't want to say anything that doesn't work out, because some of these things, we've got some really good ideas, but we need to make sure that they're actually going to be successful and interesting, of course. And not tedious or not effective, right? So we have to make sure that whatever incentives,
that's a good news to hear that. That's a good news.
Yeah, we've got ideas. I wish I could actually tell you more about the incentives. I don't think I should, right?
I hope so.
Maybe in a month we can talk, or there'll be a blog post or something, but yeah, we've got some stuff.
Okay. Very nice. So I have to ask this question too. So you mentioned it in the beginning of this interview. Why ZIRCUIT, is different than the other layer 2 that you mentioned? Can you just explain your value, your add value, compared to your competitors?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a bunch of things differently than several of our zero knowledge rollup competitors. The biggest one that we do, which is actually different than almost all rollups, whether or not they're zero knowledge, is this concept of sequencer level security, where we will have an AI model take a look at transactions and sort of simulate them on top of the chain as they're being processed. And if they're malicious, we're going to put them into quarantine, possibly never to return. And what that will do is allow us, through the sequencer, to be able to provide security guarantees that sort of can't be done elsewhere. So we can detect transactions that are malicious without needing to sort of enforce very, maybe gas-heavy requirements everywhere in smart contracts. So we can detect a bunch of things. This will be a best effort service. So, we're expecting it'll work very well. We've back tested it. It does work very well in practice, but it means we can actually detect and block malicious transactions for everyone on the chain, whether or not their app is sort of secure or not secure, or whether or not the user is sort of accidentally clicking something possibly bad or not. It will depend on the specifics, but it's really, really cool that we're going to try to do that. I said, though, depending on, regardless of the app being secure, that does not mean if you come to ZIRCUIT, please do get an audit. Do all your reasonable stuff as a dApp or a user. Don't go around trying to make yourself as vulnerable as possible. But it does mean we can do something for everyone on our chain without needing a whole bunch of very specific tailored solutions for dApps. And it'll be very easy and seamless. The user experience will also be a lot like Ethereum, right? We're an EVM compatible chain. So, change your endpoint and it'll work more or less every time. And that's the biggest feature that ZIRCUIT brings to the table. So this notion of sequencer level security. Okay. Now we do a bunch of other things that are also different. The way we have circuits and their aggregation or their parallelization is definitely different than how some of the other people are building. I can't say too much about that until we go open source, which will hopefully be with mainnet. So hopefully next month or later in the summer. It's perhaps less easy to describe the differences in what that looks like because it's just a technical sort of implementation, but it means we get pretty good performance, better performance than a lot of our competitors, and we can use different hardware. We can target different hardware, which should mean better costs or at least different availability for provers, and all of that's really cool. So we'll have some numbers and some talks and blog posts about that sort of less user-facing stuff in the future once we sort of open source and say, hey, this is what we've done and this is what we think is new, and that ranges from the circuits the way they're laid out, to the way the infras build, and very low level things too, like we have custom stuff for how to compute MSM, which is some very low level primitives that need to happen within this map. So we've really done improvements, I think, on almost every part of the system, right? So we've added new features at the sequencer level at a high level that users definitely will notice and be able to take advantage of. And we also have implemented ideas very uniquely at the lowest levels of the code that most people probably won't go looking for, but they will be there, and it will mean slightly better or much better prover time or cost. And all of these improvements will add up to I think a user experience that is very unique to ZIRCUIT, and one that hopefully everyone really likes and works with.
Interesting. Okay, you mentioned that it's possible to block a malicious transaction. Can you just give us some examples about, or to give us one use cases about this? When
Yeah,
does it work?
absolutely. So I mean, there's what malicious transactions are is open question to some extent, but
Yes.
most people can understand that a flash loan that will wipe a DeFi protocol down
Okay.
to zero is going to be malicious, right? If you're the person executing that transaction, maybe that's not true. Maybe you're very happy to profit off of that. But if you're doing that while essentially stealing from everyone else in the ecosystem of that dApp, I think most people would agree that that's more bad than good, and certainly we do, and we believe that's a malicious transaction, and so that's going to be caught, and it's going to go into quarantine, and that means it's not going to happen. And so if you're using that dApp, right, if you're using your favorite DeFi protocol on ZIRCUIT and it's protected against this, regardless of whether or not the DeFi protocol actually was developed in such a way to prevent that issue, it's really, really helpful, because you as a user don't need to rely so much on the DeFi protocol having done their job correctly. Now, they should still do their job correctly. Like I said, please, don't slack on the dApp development. But if they are vulnerable to these types of attacks, there's one level of security that is going to happen sort of chain-wide just by using the dApp, which is really, really nice. And conversely, if you're a dApp developer, right, and you've tried your best to counter these, but you've missed some corner case that allows these issues to still persist, there's one extra level of security that can happen. So flash loans and these types of sort of clearing fund transactions are definitely going to be classed as malicious, and those are some that we're looking for. But that doesn't mean those are the only types of incidents we'll be looking for, or the only types of malicious transactions. But I think that'll be the biggest use case. I think there's a lot of interest in that, because obviously these types of attacks are particularly sort of costly, right? They impact large amounts of money, and I think there's nice appeal to institutional players that say, oh, actually, we have one extra layer of security that other people don't have on chains. And there was narratives of this actually sort of being interesting already. There were incidents on other rollups in the past where people had attacks of this nature or similar nature happen, and there were calls on Twitter to roll back the chain. And you could do that in a centralized rollup. It's just very it's still difficult, but it's also more invasive and more disruptive to the chain, because maybe you have to pause the system, and then you have to figure out how to replay all the transactions on top of the rolled back state or something else, or you have to go in and very surgically do something. It's possible. I suspect some chains will eventually.
Right now, it's very complicated to.
It's very
to do
complicated.
that. Yeah.
And so
The market is not ready, to my point of view, to really understand the benefit of this, because one of the most use case of the blockchain is to have transparency and to have the immutability on blockchain. So that's
yeah,
huge. So it depends, of course, because there is a traditional world said, okay, immutability, but if I'm making a mistake, what's gonna happen? That's one of the problems. Yeah,
for sure. And so the complicated rollback to, like, you can do it, but it's just easier if it never had to be an issue in the first place. And the making the mistake part, we're saying it goes into quarantine so that if it is, classed incorrectly or something, we can still put that on chain. And so honest users actually won't need to worry about sort of this extra functionality. Everything on the chain will work exactly the way they expect it to. It's just that 0.001% of bad actors out there who need to be wary of doing things on ZIRCUIT, which is, I think very, very valuable, because that 0.001 or whatever, the number of bad actors accounts for all of the
million and
mistrust
million,
of,
yeah.
like you talk to your family or your friends who aren't in blockchain, and they say, well, yeah, people are losing money left and right. Like, yeah, well, it sucks,
That's
but at
common,
least
but
I'm trying to do something
it's like
about
a
it now,
part of the
right?
game. So okay, that's weird.
I mean, yeah, but it's like, if we can do better, then let's do better. And if that comes, through centralized sequencing, for now, like, this is a good step forward. If it means we get billions of users onto the ecosystem, it's 100% worth doing, because average users won't be affected. Bad actors will have a harder time. That's, a nice
A nice
solution,
had,
or nice, ideal,
undoubtedly,
right?
yeah.
And so hope, if everything works out, it's going to really attract people, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm curious, Jan, how did you imagine all of this? Did you speak with some traditional player, with some traditional institution, like big corporates, like maybe like banks, or like how did you imagine all of this? Because it's very the the purpose, to my understanding, is to have the benefit of the blockchain and to add some good benefit from the centralized world, if I can say that. So yeah, how did you imagine, and with which people did you choose to talk to have those idea and to have the vision of the ZIRCUIT?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know
Thank
that we were going around to banks and saying, hey, what would it take to get you on chain? I don't think that was, I don't actually recall any of those conversations. I don't think I did that ever. But, we came from a security background, and what we wanted to do is figure out, if we have this notion of a centralized sequencer, which all rollups currently have, maybe there's one or two out there that don't do that now, but 90%, if not more, do this. Why not add some value there? What's the best way we can do this? And that is to add functionality to make the chain a safer place. And then it was just a matter of, well, how do we do that? And there's actually a bunch of ways you could do this. If you've sort of listened to some of my other talks at other places, the AI solution is one, but there could be others in the future. We could do different things with sequencer level security. You could have custom invariants. You could do various things that are tailored to dApps and stuff, so that also the idea of what is malicious is also more open and transparent and decentralized. But essentially, we were going around and seeing like all these flash bombs and these attacks in the wild, and like, this is not good. We've got to stop this. And it sounds sort of obvious that, like, obviously these are not good, but something's got to give. And if the dApp developers are having a hard time with it, let's try to do something different on top of that, because it's not an easy problem to solve from a dApp point of view. Read-only reentrancy, for example, is incredibly annoying to get your head around in the best of days, right? Like, if you look at the smart contracts, if you understand how Ethereum works, it takes you some time to figure out if this is going to be a problem. And most end users don't even look at the solidity, right? That if they do some research, they maybe look at the quality of the team, or the white paper, or some small technical stuff, but probably very, very few people are looking at the code and assuring themselves that, okay, reentrancy is not going to be a problem on this particular app. And obviously the ecosystem's got a lot better at preventing a lot of these systems, but for the average user, still there's a lot of trust, or my friend said this one's good, let me put my money in there, which probably isn't strictly the best strategy, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And
Is it audit? Is it a good place? Is it? Did you just saw the code? Most of the time, the answer is no. So
yeah, exactly. So if we can do something better that mitigates that, let's try it. And so then the question was how, and the AI model has a natural fit there. It's a system that will work fairly well, and it's going to be very, very robust, and it'll capture a lot of things. So it was a nice confluence of sort of technologies too, because while blockchain was being developed, also there were massive strides in AI. So it was a great time to glue these systems together and make it something that can make this ecosystem a lot safer.
And just Jan, can you just describe the solution of AI are you using? It's an homemade. It's can you just describe some details, because it's very confusing in my mind about okay, we are using AI, which is sometimes a buzzword, currently especially. So can you just describe why an AI is important for this and how it's working?
Sure. So
There is an overview to the whole ecosystem of the circuit.
Yeah, so the AI works by looking at the transactions that are coming into the mempool on the layer 2, as well as the current tip of the chain, and we can configure exactly how that works. But right now it's the tip of the chain, and what it can do is it can simulate or interpret that transaction in the context of the blockchain as it currently exists, along with the model that it has, in order to determine if something is going to go particularly bad. So some things that it can do very cleanly is, say, is there an expected price for some specific token? So like if USDC, for example, is on the chain and, someone's trying to make the price go to 50 cents instead of $1, that's probably going to be very easy for it to detect. And it can detect those types of things, but it can also simulate more complex things like flash loans and other things. So there's a lot of training and back data that went into the system in order to make it very accurate. The false positive rate is very low. It's less than 0.01% or something like this. It's very, very low. And it means it's very effective. And it can do this in part because, it doesn't need to be super predictive in the sense of like trying every possible hack that'll ever happen in the future. It just needs to look at the transactions provided and say, is this one bad? And that's actually a much easier task to do. And it can be very accurate as a result.
But how are you able to to set up setting the parameters of the AI? Because you talk about the malicious transaction, for example, how it's working. Is it a decentralized AI? Is it you?
So
You
we have a partner
hand on the program.
We have a partner who's building the AI model themselves, but it's been back tested on years of Ethereum hacks. So things that look bad historically definitely look bad to this AI, but it can also predict other things that can go bad depending on specific parameters like coin whitelists or other behavior that we deem inappropriate. And so we're always playing around with that and making sure that it's not just trying to restrict all the previous attacks, which is definitely important because we don't want to see the same thing over and over again. We definitely want to learn from the past, but also to catch new classes of bugs, new things that people may not have thought of yet, or new exploits that take advantage of design patterns that haven't previously been exploited.
Okay, is it open source, or can we have, as a user, have an overview about the code, for example?
No, not yet.
Okay. Not
Possibly
yet.
in the future, but I don't know that there's plans to open source that just yet. What we will consider for sure is possibly seeing different ways of implementing malicious transaction classification in SLS. So the sequencer level security part, the AI is a good starting point, but maybe there will be other approaches, or maybe we can have plug and play AI models or something like this. This is a lot of where the modularity could come from for ZIRCUIT. Is there a different, better way to catch malicious transactions? We do think the AI is a very, very good starting point, and it'll be around for a long time. We have no plans to sort of get rid of it or anything like this, but maybe there are other research avenues we can explore that can complement it in a way that is very, very practical and useful and effective.
Okay. And which protocol DeFi are you in touch? No, my question will be, if I want to deploy my protocol on ZIRCUIT, what's going to happen? How it's working?
Sure. So for now, I will say, go to build.zircuit.com to sort of sign up and sort of get in touch with our BD people. And I'm on the technical side, so I don't know what that process exactly looks like. Okay. But once the network is live, or if you don't want to go through the build to earn channel, the network looks like and feels like Ethereum. So you can deploy code. So the testnet is up. You can get some testnet Ether. You can take your smart contracts. You can deploy it. That'll be that. Same when we go mainnet. You will always be able to do that. You can take your ETH, put it on chain, and then deploy some contracts. Now, you probably also want to be featured on our website and stuff like that. So that's why you should come talk to us. And certainly if you see me at a conference, ask me, and I can either point you to the team, or build.zircuit.com will definitely be a good resource. And regards to who we're building with, or who we're going live with, stay tuned. I think we've got the ecosystem page almost ready to share. So I'll wait for that. And like I said, I'm not on the BD side anyway, so I don't know all of the partners. I know we've got some really cool ones. I've talked to some of them already, but coming soon.
Okay, so my next question was this. Where we are about the ecosystem. Maybe you have a little bit of a view on this, even if you are on the technical side.
Yeah, I mean, I've got only some rough numbers, tens to maybe hundreds of dApps who are very excited. So it's very vague, in part because I want to make sure that I don't oversell it. But it's a good group of companies, people, and dApps that have definitely been heard of by other people. I really wish I came prepared and had at least 2 or 3 names to tell you. I don't know what's
as soon as possible. Yeah, we hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I can send you a message about that too, and you can also share it once we know, or once I know I can share it. Right. I know who they are.
Okay. How many people are currently working for ZIRCUIT or build ZIRCUIT or around ZIRCUIT? I don't know how ZIRCUIT is structured.
Yeah.
There is a foundation. How it's working.
Yeah. So we've got about 20-ish technical people working on the project. So myself and a couple co-founders exist. So I have 3 other co-founders. And myself and Martin, for example, are technical. So we run the technical side, and the technical bit is, the most challenging part in my mind right now. Obviously, getting good dApps and ecosystem support is very important. So we do have some staff on the BD side to make sure things are going well. But our other co-founders are really doing a really good job there. On the technical side, about 20 engineers, somewhere in that range. It's a combination of people writing Go code, Rust code, and cryptographers and DevOps, and sort of all the things you need to make a blockchain really work, because it's more than just getting circuits to work. For example, you still need the actual nodes to be running, and all of this. You need the infrastructure to exist, and you need to make changes to the code base as things evolve. So 20 engineers seems to be a really nice number. We're maybe at 22 or something like this now, based on some new hires. But it's a big enough team that we can keep up and be competitive and do new features, but small enough that we still know each other, and we can sort of all know what's going on in the code base, and we can sort of be very, very clear with the communication requirements, and nothing gets lost. And that, I think, is very valuable, because what you don't want is someone developing stuff that doesn't actually fit in with the requirements of the system.
Of course, yeah.
Like so it's a good size like that. And then we have other people who are doing BD and things like this. So it's probably another handful of people, somewhere maybe like 5, and they're doing a great job.
Okay. Are you planning to hire some people in the following months?
Almost certainly, yes.
How much?
But I don't know how many or who.
How many?
So I think we just got a couple people in the last couple of months, and so we want to make sure that they're onboarded and the team is growing organically. And we don't want to hire people just for the sake of hiring people. The small lean team certainly has its is certainly valuable because of the reasons I said before, where everyone sort of knows what's going on, and it's very easy to sort of manage, and there's a lot of very clear critical work that can be done that way. Going forward, probably we will hire. I mean, the project will continue to grow. We will need additional staff and support. So I think things like cryptographers, for example, to continue improving a lot of the researchy ends, probably will be an open application. But other positions, it will depend on the roadmap of features going forward. So right now we're okay. We can sort of do what we need to do. But if we ever find ourselves needing to build more quickly or support our ecosystem partners, absolutely we're willing to hire, but I don't know how many.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Are you in touch with some big corporations? Big companies. Because your value you want to bring in the game is very interesting, regarding security, for example. So, uh, yes, are you in touch with big companies already?
I think so,
I,
but
I mean traditional.
yeah, I know. I know. I don't know that I can say any of these things, so I will have to dodge the question. I think what you really want to be talking to is some of our BD people. That might be another follow-up podcast for you to say who you
But
actually
okay,
want to talk to.
I'm going to rephrase, Jan. My question will be more this: how we far, how the gap is large or not between the crypto space, especially
Mhm.
regarding the L2 and the traditional world, financial or not, you know.
I think the gap is still big, but we're working to close it every day.
And why it's still big, as you mentioned,
I think there's still a lot of mistrust, but I think in the ecosystem, not us specifically. I think there's a
Yes.
lot of mistrust of both hacks that are happening and a lot of the regulation, right? So industry players, I think, have a big challenge of wanting to use the system, but not knowing, even the simple part of like how taxes work, let alone like
Yeah.
what KYC or other compliance issues they need to handle, but just, all of these regulatory challenges that, kind of scare people off from taking the leap. And then there's technical challenges and, good use cases for why blockchains will happen. I think that part is closing a lot quicker than a lot of the regulatory stuff. And maybe I'm biased because I am technical, but you have the notion of layer twos coming online in sort of earnest. So not just prototypes, but real functional layer twos that are cheaper, that are really, really nice and can do all the things you want them to do. Um, and that's really cool, not because the layer twos necessarily themselves are exciting and have good features, which they do, like ZIRCUIT, but because they also support things like layer threes. And so I think layer threes are where we'll see a lot of institutional adoption, because what you can do in a layer three is you can build out a blockchain network on a
Yes.
fast and cheap
Mm.
layer two, and you can
You
implement
have
it in
the
a way
trust
that
of Ethereum, and you have the cheapest and faster transaction.
yeah. And with the layer three, you can take all the tech that was put into layer two and customize it to your own need, right? So if I were a bank, I would want some control over, can I roll back a transaction because, I have clerks that will make mistakes, for example. On
Mm.
Ethereum, you can't do that. And on a layer two, I mean, you could, but then you have to get widespread adoption for your layer two. And there's a whole challenge there, bootstrapping, for example, staking and all of this. If you are a bank and you build your own layer three, now you can talk to all the liquidity on a cheap, fast layer two, but you get to build your own state transition function. And it doesn't even need to be, advanced zero knowledge proofs. Maybe you don't actually want that because you want to be able to tell people, I will roll back in some certain situations if my bank functionality requires it. And that is only, you know, starting to happen. I think the layer three revolution is going to be a couple of months out, if not much, much longer. But when people realize that they can play around with blockchain in their own unique way with all the savings that layer twos bring, that will be really, really cool, because then you could see people building their own layer threes that have their own state transitions. And some of those will be things like banks where you could, they could roll back things or whatever. But others will be things like games where your roll up isn't, computing a zero knowledge proof of, the virtual machine of Ethereum, but the virtual machine of your game. So you'll have games being executed on chain as part of roll ups, like built in. And that will be really, really, really cool.
Mm.
Will that close the gap to sort of traditional finance? Probably, maybe not for gaming, but for the other ones, you could do that, right? You could have private roll-ups like layer threes where you don't reveal transaction data on chain because some regulatory compliance issue, and people are okay with that
Mm.
because the roll-up is centrally operated by a bank. And so the regulators are maybe still happy that, oh, well, if I have a question, I know which institution is
Yes.
running this node and I'll
Mm.
go ask them. Whereas on Ethereum, privacy is a bit of an annoyance because, regulators are like, well, how do I know who's doing that? And like, I'm all for privacy, but there's a reason I think a lot of chains are not private right now, and it's just because there's a big, regulatory question mark of how that's going to be handled. When you start moving to L3s and institutionally operated chains, I can foresee, but I'm not an oracle, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if this will actually happen. But I could foresee that being an easier landscape to navigate, and I think that's going to be really cool. But we can't get there until we have a whole bunch of layer twos that have liquidity, have good tech that's battle tested, that work, and then ideally that you can fork so that these banks can also even start building their own layer threes, which look like layer twos, because why wouldn't they? To start, right? Later they'll specialize, and I think that's really cool.
Okay. So very interesting vision. Thank you, Jan. Thank you for all of this, for the explication. It's very interesting to have an interview some co-founder like you, because most of the time when there is a new project, like ZIRCUIT, it's very difficult to find more information than the documentation, which is most of the time very, very technique, very difficult sometimes to understand. So it's really nice as a journalist for our subscriber, our viewers, to talk directly with one of the co-founder, and to be able to democratize some product like that. So thanks again, Jan. And we hope so the mainnet and maybe a token. That's my view. Will be soon on ZIRCUIT, and good luck for the roadmap.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, and yeah, stay tuned for all the cool stuff that we're gonna have. Appreciate the time.
I remind the fact that this week, so I've been dedicated at the Big Whale about the layer 2, so you can you can find a really nice analyze about the layer 2, very good articles. There is a ZK Sync, and there is an article about the overview where we are about the layer 2. So just for the audience and for you, Jan, maybe as soon as subscriber.
I'll take a look.
So we will see that. Thanks again, and good luck for the roadmap. Thank you for being with us.